Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I am John Pollock alongside Robin Black. John Ramdeen is getting set for International Fight Week, where he will be down in Las Vegas. I mean, he will be in the center of all of it, while you and I back here to just observe the chaos that will be UFC 189.
Yeah, I love working in the studio, so I'm not complaining, but Vegas is a pretty fun town, and that is going to be a crazy week down there. Plus, you know, being in attendance for that fight card would be pretty fun.
Well, International Fight Week signals the official start of the Reebok era in the UFC. We got the fighter kit launch this past Tuesday in New York City. First of all, Robin, just the unveiling of it. Let's not even get into some of the comedy of errors, but just the presentation. I mean, here we were in this like nightclub environment. We had the dubstep blaring everywhere. What did you think from a presentation level, how they unveiled some of these outfits for some of the fighters?
I enjoyed the movie Zoolander. I thought that was a great movie,
similar.
and this had that kind of vibe.
They missed Kenny Florian.
Yeah, you know what? The whole thing really was kind of weird. In the end, I think I'm going to really personally like how the fighters look in the arena. I think I'm going to like that look. I think it's going to be cool. But this whole thing, like, I don't know who the audience was. And I think when you get a whole bunch of people who are experts, you know, expert at putting on a presentation, expert at designing athletic wear, somewhere in the line, you should have had a mixed martial arts expert. Somebody who's an expert on the culture of mixed martial arts. Because somewhere in everything, that feels like it's missing.
Or expert, or you could even compromise down to a spell checker. I think that could have worked wonders on this past Tuesday. The actual rollout of this, obviously, and especially this is true in the mixed martial arts world, you focus on the negative and kind of throw the positive to the side. And that is what was largely, the spotlight was on Tuesday. Spelling errors, a lot of the issues with a lot of the mock-ups of the fighter jerseys. I mean,
I got to get me a Giblert shirt.
Giblert Melendez will now forever be, listen, if Giblert is smart, he will start marketing his own Giblert shirts. And I think those would be hot sellers for an outside company that is trying to make up some dollars.
All comedy aside, Gilbert Melendez is a brilliant fighter with a huge, brilliant legacy, traveled around the world as a great warrior. And somehow this thing is going to follow him around. That's not cool, but I still really do want a Gilbert shirt.
I think there's a lot of positive you can take from it. I mean, it's a silly mistake that a guy can run with and have a lot of fun with.
If he has fun with it.
But the biggest takeaway I had, Robin, was that there was a noticeable disconnect between Reebok, the UFC, and the UFC audience. And the furthest apart was the UFC audience with Reebok.
Yeah.
It just seemed like they didn't understand how to communicate to that audience, and right down to legal names being presented, a very homogenized look with some of these uniforms, which by design are going to have that uniformity to them. But that is something that a lot of people enjoy about fighting, is that individuality. And for a fighter's perspective, of course they want to separate themselves from the pack. That's why we get people in main events and not on Fight Pass cards. It's because personalities are what fans are buying into.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like, and you look at it, a lot of people are like, this is the worst thing ever. This is the biggest mistake the UFC or anyone has ever made in the history of people.
You never get people yelling that this is a moderate concern.
Yeah, that's right. But sometime in the future, that may be true. 5 years in the future, we go, you know, man, that day that they really kind of, a whole bunch of business experts, branding experts, at fashion people, and all of them got together and didn't have a clue what their fans, what their consumers did. That's possible. We might be saying that. We also might be saying a year from now, that this is a normal overreaction that we always have, and everybody gets used to it. Very hard to predict. You don't want to knee-jerk it right away. Also, the fact that everybody hated it is almost making me like it a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that, you know, to be in this position that we are, I think it's responsible to keep an open viewpoint. I mean, yeah, they had a bad rollout. I mean, there's no kind of coloring that any other than what we saw on Tuesday. But the long term of this is still an unknown. Yeah. You're aware of fighters that some of them went into UFC fights and they would have no sponsors.
Yeah.
At least now there is a basement. Guaranteed, you cannot even pick up a phone and you're guaranteed $5,000. Now, that's not a life-changing sum of money, but it's a guarantee for some people where time that I'm representing myself as a low-level fighter, I don't have to chase around sponsors. I don't have to worry if that check is going to come, much less if it clears. I mean, that is a bit of a state of mind for a fighter to have going into a fight, but it does change the game. You do know what you're making. It is a guarantee, but the days of six-figure sponsorships that you can fish outside of all these different companies, that's not there. If you're a guy going into the Ultimate Fighter, is there an incentive any longer when those fights don't count towards this? It changes up the business model considerably, and there's positive and negative to take from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking, I'm a small segment of fans. I think, and I like just the fights. I like the action, I like the sport, I like the technique, I like how the fights unfold. This makes sense with that. Oh, okay, it's a sports league where my sport is at. I love that. But on the other hand, the UFC heavily markets beefs, the things people say, the media follows around. A media headline will be, Aldo said this. It won't be Aldo's training consists of this. So in one sense, the UFC and its audience have migrated that way, and then all of a sudden we're saying, hey, check it out, it looks like another sport. The whole thing feels like it's not super connected, and it is very, very strange. Who knows what it'll be in the future? I look at it and go, I'm not probably going to buy any of these. But is it aimed at me? Because a lot of people's teenagers' moms might buy them that for Christmas. I don't know who's buying this stuff. I think on fight night it's going to look cool. I think as a fan it doesn't really speak to me.
Yeah, I think that the jury is very much out on this. I think it's a bit of an alarmist reaction to say this is going to kill individuality. I mean, this is not going to mute fighters. This is not going to change the way in which they promote fights or interview fighters after said fight. I think that there's a lot of gray area that everyone's going to discover over the next year, UFC and Reebok included. I guarantee you those companies were as negative about Tuesday as most people were, and they're going to learn from that and probably say, listen, bad foot forward, and now we have International Fight Week to correct a lot of errors on day one.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're not sitting around going, oh, it went perfectly. They're sitting around looking, going, how do we kind of turn this around? And you're right. It's going to be interesting. I'm neither here nor there on it. I probably won't wear it. I'd wear a Gibbler shirt. I would totally wear a Gibbler shirt. But these I'm not all that interested, but I really think it's going to look cool on fight night.
All right, we will be back next week. It's International Fight Week, and Saturday night, July the 11th, we will be live with a 1-hour preview show getting you set for the pay-per-view card, and then immediately after the main event, we're back for a live post-show running through the entire card and presenting the post-fight press conference. For Ronan Black, I'm Jonathan Pollock, and more Fight News Now Extra is coming up.